Hello.
Hi, Dad. This is your official podcast debut. Are you excited?
I am. I am very excited.
Okay, amazing. So when I was doing research for my interview with Melissa Etheridge, I found a text that you sent to me. Let me pull it up. This is dated March 28th, 2020. It says, "Do I recall hearing that you love Melissa Etheridge? I just heard an incredible song from her called Like the Way I Do." And then it goes on to say, "It's got the most incredible rock beat in a driving song that just doesn't quit. I had to look it up, exclamation point. Do you know it?" And then I said, "Yes, I love her. That's one of her classics, for sure, exclamation point." It's been a bit, but do you remember this text?
When you read the text, I was like, oh my goodness, that is that song. Because it goes on forever. I was just telling you. But in a car and I turn it up and everything like this, now I can recall that. It's such a big song of hers. And I loved it. I just loved it, yes.
Well, in my memory, and this could be completely false or just made up, but I remember you talking about her, and she was this amazing singer with this amazing voice, not this amazing lesbian singer. Like, that wasn't like the first part of her identity. I mean, when she came out, do you remember it being a big deal to you or just even in general?
I mean, that's the music industry. That's Hollywood. And that didn't change anything because her music was so good.
Wait. What does that mean that that's just like Hollywood in the music industry? Are you saying that everyone's gay?
No, I'm not saying that. But it wasn't unusual to have personalities come out and say they were gay versus the layman, were still in the closet, if you will. And so personalities came out and I don't know. Remember, that's a long time ago, and things were very different back in those days.
That is true. In the 5-year history of this podcast, you are only the second straight person to ever be on the show. It is you and Renee Zellweger. Do you feel special?
I do, but maybe there's something I need to tell you.
Oh, okay, and we're out of time. All right, on that note, let's get to the interview. Dad, thank you for being here. And from The Advocate magazine in partnership with GLAAD, this is LGBTQ&A with Melissa Etheridge, whose brand new album, One Way Out, is out now. I want to start by going back a bit. In the late 80s, early 90s, I think that period during your first couple of records is so compelling because you were not out publicly, but in your private life, you were. You had girlfriends, you played gay bars, you were living a very gay life. Now, I know it was a different time, but did it feel like you were living two completely separate lives?
Back then, no. It was very much don't ask, don't tell. And there was kind of an assumption with the majority of people. There was just this line when it came to reviews or to the press where it was very gender non-specific. They would just say, well, is this about a boyfriend? I would say, well, my partner, blah. I would always answer non-specifically. And when I played concerts, my first few rows were always lesbians, were always women. And it was obvious. It was one of the reasons I came out. It's like, come on, this is getting kind of ridiculous, that it's really obvious.
So how did that don't ask, don't tell mentality affect your art though? Were you afraid to put too overtly gay lyrics in your music?
I was very aware of my lyrics. But the funny thing was, even when I was playing gay bars, I didn't write overtly. I never went, and I love her. I never wrote like that because I did want my music to be universally. I wanted if a woman was singing about a guy, if a woman is thinking about a guy, I want her to be able to, sing, "Oh, somebody bring me some water." I kept it very gender non-specific for that reason.
I do think too, though, you've songs like Meet Me in the Back. This is about a woman, you picking someone up at a bar and saying hey, meet me in the back. We're going to go at it. I think that obviously a woman pursuing someone is not gay, but it does have this kind of gay sensibility to it.
Yes, there was definitely a power to it. And I believe that's why so many gay, lesbians heard it and went, wait a minute, that's a lesbian singing that because, nobody sings like that about a guy. That sort of thing. To me, it was obvious. But again, I kept the specific pronouns out.
Is there an example of like a lyric that you changed in a song to make it like less specific?
No, I didn't change any, but when I went to write about things, I remember thinking, okay, well, I can always write about the other woman, the go on and close your eyes, imagine me there. She's got similar features, because I'm a woman, so I can sing about that. I know I would write things and the way that I would write, I would either write about, oh, you're cheating on me with another woman, or, you're with somebody else, or it's me and you. I'm singing directly to you. I never did a her or a him about the person that the relationship I was singing about. So I specifically would choose that way to write about it, so I didn't have to write about the gender of the person that's breaking my heart.
That's a lot of like mental gymnastics, like in the songwriting process.
Yeah.
Did that feel freeing then to not have to do that?
Well, it became a craft, actually. It became like something that I was crafting and that I still kind of do to this day. I mean, every now I'll be much more relaxed in, when I'm singing about my wife and matters now, I will be more open about it. But still, the majority of my songs are kind of genderless.
Well, I think that like as a listener, I think it's like a nuanced conversation because I really want to hear a woman singing about a woman on the radio, but I also want like the more universal songs, like Come to My Window. I think you say like this love, and everyone thinks like this love is like about them.
Yeah, that's the way I want my songs to be relatable. I want men, women, straight, gay. I want them to, I want it to be the common human experience.
And so you did come out publicly in 93. This was like pre-Ellen DeGeneres, pre-Rosie O'Donnell. Did it feel like alone in a way?
It was scary in that there wasn't a whole lot of people. Katie Lang came out a few weeks before I did. So, and we were all very good friends back then. Ellen, Rosie, Katie, we were in this sort of this gay underground Hollywood, and we were all very much out in Hollywood. And so it was, to me, I was like, KD jumped out, did an interview with The Advocate and didn't really ever say she was gay, but it's like, hey, you're on the cover of The Advocate, probably means you're gay, and she was very obvious, in her look and demeanor. So it just seemed, right. It seemed like the thing that it seemed natural.
I was always wondering, like, how did you and all the women you named find each other if you were in the closet? But I guess to your answer, it's like you weren't in the closet really, like, socially.
Yeah, I know. I met KD at the first Grammy Awards. I walked up to her because obviously, I looked at her and went, duh, I know this woman. And I met her and we both brought our girlfriends to the Grammys. So we're like, hey, this is my girlfriend. And so we were out. Ellen DeGeneres was a huge fan of mine and knew some friends that knew me, and I just met her. And so I knew her when she was like just a stand-up comic, she hadn't done anything. So we all became friends just because she was just a comic. And then that first year she became, I think, best comic or something that year, best stand-up comic. And then she got a television show. Then she got another one, and then Rosie was a VJ on VH1 and also a stand-up comic. And we back then we had a lot more time to hang out. Now we have terribly busy, lives and we rarely see each other. But, back then we were all living in Hollywood trying to make it. So we just, you do find each other.
So among the community of women that we're talking about, did any of you ever date? Can I ask that?
Oh, you can ask that. No, it's so funny. We were all, none of us, Rosie, Ellen, KD, me, I'm trying to think. No, none of us ever dated each other. KD slept with my girlfriend, which, anyway. But no, I think we were all very sort of powerful. Do I say tops? I don't know. We were all, and so we weren't really attracted to each other. We were like, friends.
Well, with that, like, top energy you just named, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
I also think when you were starting out, your gorgeous hair and like makeup, and you were presenting very like femme. Was that the industry like telling you to do that, or is that you?
The industry really didn't tell me much. I was very blessed to have the record company I had was Island Records, it was Chris Blackwell who owned Island Records. He was like the head of Island Records. So he had the last say, and he discovered me in a women's bar. I had these industries, the whole industry knew I was gay because they had all come to the women's bars to see me and didn't sign me. And he did. He liked what he saw. He liked the strong, soft butch kind of woman that I was. Me, I got out there and went, oh gosh, what's the world going to say? And so I didn't necessarily fem up. I think the only time that they ever went, oh, we want you to do a little bit more makeup on you was the third album I did. I did 2 photo shoots for Never Enough. One was kind of sporty, soft butch. And then they brought in another makeup person, and they kind of that's when they cut my bangs. And then and you'll see on the back of the album, there's this really gorgeous picture of me. That was about as glam. I let them kind of do that, here or there. And then by the time Yes, I Am came out, which was the next record, that photo shoot, I went, no, I'm being myself. Let's just, and from then on, it's everything you've seen has always been how I feel and who I am.
And so eventually coming out publicly, even though it was known within the industry, did you still have worries that it would affect your career?
Well, sure. But I had such a positive experience from when I came out with my family. My father was like, okay, I don't really understand it, but as long as you're happy, fine. And so I had that sort of solid thing. My mother, she had problems anyway with herself, but then by the by the time I was 25, she was like, okay. And she had met my girlfriend. So I was out to my family. It wasn't a problem. I was definitely out. I was in the community. I was hanging around some really strong leaders, Urvashi Vade and, some huge LGBT leaders in Hollywood and in Washington. They kept, hey, will you do this for this? And they kind of kept keeping me in the community without being out yet. And finally, I was just like, well, look at how hard these people are working for our rights. This was AIDS, the big height of AIDS. And I thought, why am I, as my fame is rising, as my success is getting larger, it's going to look like I'm hiding this. And what happened was there was an interview I did with Music Exchange. It was a music store. And they had their in-house magazine. It was my first cover of a magazine, and I did this long interview with this guy, and all neutral pronouns. And when it came out, he had changed all the pronouns to me saying my boyfriend. And it horrified me because I thought, oh my God, people are going to read this and think that I'm lying, that I'm all of a sudden saying, oh, my boyfriend. And so that horrified me. And I went, well, that's worse. For everyone who knows me, the women's community. I mean, I played women's music festivals. I mean, all these people that I knew, I thought, this is devastating. I've got to come out. I made the choice. I'm going to come out. I was going to come out on Arsenio Hall, his show, because he was the one guy who would sit down and actually interview me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to come out on a show. But then I played the triangle ball at Clinton's inauguration. And I just said, hey, I'm so proud to be a lesbian. And then that was it,
Wait, are you saying that Arsenio Hall, that none of the other talk shows wanted you to come out on their show?
Yeah, I would. I think I had, David Letterman, I would play a song, but that was it. I would never sit down and talk. Arsenio Hall was the only one I had sat down and talked with.
Oh, interesting. I mean, so months later, you won your second Grammy for Come to My Window. That must have been reassuring that, okay, I can have a music career.
Well, what happened was I came out, and this is before the internet, this is before social media, and it was slow coming out. What would happen is back then I would do interviews with every single local paper, and each of them, when they would do their research, would see that I came out. And so every paper I did, I just talked about being gay. For 2 years, I did interview after interview after interview about being gay. And it was this slow sort of build as my album was building. So I sold, 6 million albums. The album was huge and it didn't hurt. And all this publicity didn't hurt because they would put me on the front page. This is the first out, person. And so I got this extra publicity. The gay community came around and then it worked.
That's such an interesting difference in just like the news cycle, where like now if you came out, it would be everywhere within like 3 minutes. And so you in a way had to keep like outing yourself, like day after day.
I got very good about talking about being gay. I mean, really for a good 2-3 years, that's all I talked about. And I remember thinking someday this will just be a color in my crayon box. But still to this day, there's some place people say, oh, that's the lesbian rock star, and I'm okay. If you wanted that, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Still, but not many, not many. I've had cancer. All these other things have happened. It's all right.
It's also so interesting that you were having to out yourself like day after day to journalists, but also you were face to face with them and seeing their reactions with each and every one of them, as opposed to like a blank face on the internet.
Yeah. It was interesting because a lot of the interviews I did were with very kind of misogynistic, rock and roll, all these old rock and roll guys. And a lot of them didn't quite know what to say or do with me. And some of them just, left me alone. And, some would ask me some really deeply intense questions, and it was okay though. It was all right.
Are you saying intense questions like about your sex life?
No, they would never be inappropriate. Like I just remember one, I think it was a Dutch journalist, and he was this guy, but he was like the rock journalist. And he says, well, and I can't do a Dutch accent, but he, would say, hey, I think that rock and roll is a male energy. It's a male, that has to sing rock and roll. But now that you're gay, I guess that's still true because you're singing about a woman. He tried to make it that even though I was a woman and I was a rocker and a successful rocker, it didn't really count because I still liked women, And I was like, how you working that?
I mean, with like the misogyny in the industry, the sexism, which isn't every industry, but in terms of just like the Me Too movement and like we're talking more openly about like sexual assault, did your queerness protect you from like those more serious things?
Yes, it did. Actually, I totally think that because anytime I remember, oh man, okay. I've seen people like start to, back in the late 80s, kind of even before I came out, but maybe the record executive or whatever that was with me, everyone that worked with me knew I was gay, but maybe the person I was talking to didn't know. And you would get this kind of extra attention. And then all of a sudden someone would lean over and say something to them and they'd go, oh, okay. And back off. So I had a couple of, name people start to approach me. And then obviously they got the word and I never heard from them again. So
you could just see it change in their eyes.
It definitely protected me. It was like, oh no, there's nothing here for you to sniff around.
Wow. And then I do want to make sure we talk about the new album that's coming out. These are all previously unreleased tracks. I know with, as an example, Come to My Window, you've said that you almost didn't put out that song because you didn't think it was good enough. And now it is, one of your biggest songs. Are these songs like that you've changed your mind on or were wrong about? Maybe you didn't think they were good, but now you do. How are you thinking about all of them?
Yeah, well, back in the late 80s, early 90s, before I had children and as busy, crazy of a life as I have now, I had a lot of time to write and a lot of time to work on music. And so each album had a lot of songs that didn't make the albums. And when I went back a few years ago, I was going to do a box set and I ended up getting off my record label and everything. So it didn't happen. But I investigated all these old demos I had and I started listening and I was like, wait a minute, these are really good songs. And then I said, I need to go record these. And then I started realizing that some of them I didn't put on albums because some of them I wasn't out yet. And they were a little like, there's a song on the album called Wild, Wild, Wild. And it's I am singing to a feminine, it's just obvious, you stop crying. So, there's very, very like the other person is very feminine. I remember I loved the song and I was like, I can't. And I stopped myself from doing it. Then songs like Cool As You Try and Save Myself are really, they're very feminist based, very powerful based that fit perfectly now. It's we're there now. But 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they were a little overly powerful, you know. If you, were around or an adult back in the late 80s, early 90s, you kind of remember there was a big feminist backlash. So it was different. And so now I look at these songs and go, oh, they're innocent now. But back then I had a little like, oh, so I didn't put them out.
I think maybe too, that is what people respond to in your music is like you're walking at this line and you're not going over it. You're not also naming the line. Like for example, The Boy is Strange. It's like you hear that song and you're like, wait, what is this about? And then you came out and you maybe a little more insights there. There's like a queer reading, but I think like that makes you like want to play it again and again to like try to figure it out, quote unquote.
And that I did that a lot on purpose. I remember writing that because I wrote it about my girlfriend's ex-husband, who was a friend of mine, and how now he couldn't be because I had an affair with his wife, whatever, but not proud of it, but okay. And it's a song about he doesn't know how to be friends with me now, and the boy feels strange, but we really got along and we were really good friends. And it was so, and I knew when I put that out, people would go, what, huh? But I did it on purpose like that. That was absolutely what I meant to do.
So like how many unreleased songs do you like have? Like, is that in the hundreds?
No, I'd say I have about maybe 100, maybe. I'd say there would be only about 50 that I would really like be okay other people listening to. The other 50 are probably not ever. But these are 9, 10. I have more that I would definitely release.
You're now 60. Like, what was that like to hear like the younger 20s, 30s Melissa, like in action?
A lot of it, a couple things happened. One, I appreciate that. I think I've gotten better as a singer. I've gotten healthier. I'm a healthier body, and I sing a little more full than I did back then.
Wait, so I don't want to cut you off, but that shocks me that you didn't think that you were like a full singer. Because to me, like, that's the first word I'd use.
All performers are incredibly insecure. You would just be surprised. And so it did my heart good to go back and listen and go, oh, I wasn't as bad as I thought, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, we're almost out of time, I'm bummed to say. But, the real purpose of this interview was just for me to yell at you for not playing New York City on your current tour. So, like, what is up with that, Melissa?
I know. You know why? Because the way that the tour landed was that I had just played New York City. 2020, I was going to do these other gigs, but now it's 2021. And it's like, oh gosh, now it's going to be 3 years before I go back in the city. But I do have dates planned for 2022. So we've already got them planned. I'm coming to New York City. It's just that the way it all turned out with the COVID rescheduling everything, it didn't happen.
All right, 2022, I will see you there.
Great. I'm ready.
Well, this was fantastic. Melissa, thank you so much for taking time for it.
Thank you so much, hon.
Of course.
Bye.
And that was Melissa Etheridge. Her brand new album, One Way Out, is out right now. And then we do have a tiny favor to ask while you're here. I think this can be quick and easy for everyone. If you enjoyed our interview with Melissa or any of our previous ones, please help us to spread the word. Do a tweet, a Facebook post, text 3 of your closest friends. Those are really the biggest ways you can help our show continue to grow and continue to stay free. So thank you so much to everyone who does that. It means the world and really is a massive, massive help. We're on social media at LGBTQ Pod. I'm on there at JeffMasters1. We're brought to you by The Advocate Magazine in partnership with GLAAD. I'm Jeffrey Masters. I will see you next week. Bye.